The Oracle of Luna is a podcast with me, Bridget Engels, as your host. Here we have conversations with real live, present-day goddesses who are actively and courageously doing their magical work in the world. Each episode is a bewitching journey with relevant discussions on topics such as Wiccan pagan spirituality, writing, culture, magical practices, art, ritual, and the craft in its many forms. Merry meet! Welcome to another episode of the Oracle of Luna podcast. I'm Bridget Engels, your host, and today I am honored to chat with the amazing Arin Murphy-Hiscock. Arin is the author of several popular books on witchcraft and nature-based spirituality, including The GreenWitch, The House Witch, The GreenWitch's Garden, The GreenWitch's Grimoire, The GreenWitch's Book of Self-Care, and The GreenWitch's Oracle Deck. Welcome, Arin.
Hi, Bridget. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm looking forward to chatting with you. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. It's been a pretty busy couple of weeks, just running around and doing stuff. I've got 2 kids, and we're heading into that sort of last part of the school year. So there have
Yeah.
been exhibitions and rehearsals for things and, appointments here and there. So it's kind of been nice today to just I woke up to a cup of tea and a little bouquet that my younger
Yeah.
daughter brought me.
Happy Mother's
Um,
Day.
Thank you very much, and happy Mother's Day a week late, because everybody's going to be listening to this later, but I hope
Yeah.
all mamas and mama type people had an absolutely wonderful day. Yep, my kids very proudly showed me that my oldest daughter chose a beautiful big bowl of different succulents that they
Ooh.
found at the garden center. So that was waiting for me on the kitchen table this morning, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and it really made my
Oh,
day.
oh, that's wonderful. How nice. So, we have a lot to unpack here, and I have a lot of questions for you. So let's get rolling.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I usually start the show with early beginnings of all my guests. So, Arin, how did your spiritual journey as a green witch begin?
Well, my spiritual journey on an alternative path in general started when I was in university. Um, I was doing a project, a storytelling project with some other people, and we decided that one of these characters was going to be a modern witch. Now, this was the early 90s, so things weren't as prevalent then as they
Yeah.
are now. So I had to do a little bit of tracking things down, and I discovered there was a New Age bookstore in the city. So I visited one day and I stepped in, and I know a lot of people have had this feeling. You step into a shop like this and you immediately feel relaxed and connected, somehow relaxed and invigorated at the same time. Um, It was a great place. It smelled wonderful. It felt wonderful. It sounded wonderful. So I went home with 3 books that day, and I started reading up on it. And the more I read, this was initially for research, but the more I read, the more I realized that I was really vibing with some of the ideas in it and the concepts, and I really started seeing my own personal values and ideals reflected in this concept of modern witchcraft. So at the time, most of what was available were books on goddess spirituality and Wicca. And that was fine for me then. I mean, this was my first introduction to the whole concept of alternative spirituality. So I started practicing, and I realized over time that um, I was becoming more attuned to the daily flow of energy going on around me. And once I'd sort of plugged into that, I started to be better able to sift through the different energies of my environment and sort of work to tweak them to come up with a better sense of balance, both in myself and in the energy of my environment.
Alignment,
W
alignment sounds like.
yeah, alignment and balance are
Yeah.
really key uh, concepts for me. And while I started off, looking into goddess spirituality and Wicca, over time I started evolving into a more just general nature-based path, simply because that concept of balance, if I'm looking to balance myself, then it seems only respectful to want to do the same for the energies around me. I've never been big on the idea of taking without giving. So sure, I could draw on those environmental energies to help balance myself when I needed it, but taking the steps and the responsibility to curate the energy around me as well, give it what it might need, tweak
Mm,
it in ways to make it healthier as well. Those became really important ideas and goals for me. So curating the energies of the environment around me, not just for my benefit, but for the benefit of the environment itself. It becomes a healthier place for itself, for everyone who interacts with it. And I find that doing that within nature well, I was gonna just about to say it's only natural, which,
yeah.
it says a lot and yet nothing at all at the same time. If I find it much easier to connect to the energies of nature and think about the fact that everything is a cycle. So what I feed into it, I will be able to draw on again later. And just to think of myself as a participant in that greater sphere, that greater flow of energy and the rhythms that carry on.
Hmm.
It's something that gives me so much peace and so much happiness.
Yeah. And at this, were you in Canada, or are in Canada and you grew up in
I
Canada?
am in Canada. I'm in southern Quebec.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. So were you living near a forest or natural
Absolutely
area?
not.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, this is something that was also really important to me because at the time a lot of advice was, well, just go out into nature and, feel your connection to it. And here I am in a city looking around me going, what nature?
Right.
Um, and so I thought, well, you know what? There are a bunch of witchy people who live in cities who might not have immediate access to even a backyard. So what I started doing was working to figure out ways to connect to nature within a more urban environment. And and it really struck a chord with people when I started publishing about it because it's something that you want that sort of I idyllic witch's cottage. You want that huge garden. You want to live next to the edge of a lovely deep dark forest. But the reality is most of us don't. And so
Right.
finding ways to connect to nature within that kind of environment, I feel is really, really important.
Yeah. And it's more challenging. It takes a little
It
bit
certainly
more
is.
oomph to and strength to really get in balance and harmony with nature and the natural forces and the seasons and cycles when you're, walking in concrete and, buildings, you're just in an urban environment all the time. So it can be a little bit more challenging. So kudos to you to be inspired by nature within an urban setting. And I'm
It
just
takes
wondering.
some imagination. It takes
Yeah,
some imagination and
right.
creativity, and you know what? That's what witchcraft is all about, right? I mean,
Yeah.
these alternative spiritual paths are about creativity and using
Yes.
visualization and coming up with new solutions to things.
Right.
And I think this is a great opportunity for anyone to really reach out and explore the energies of their environment and say, okay, well, look, I may be surrounded by concrete and skyscrapers, but what can I feel within that? I
Yeah.
mean, there are rhythms, even if you live in a place where you don't see a scrap of green, the seasons still have cycles, and you will see those cycles impact your city landscape in different ways.
Right.
Um, you will be able to see the weather changing, how the people in the city respond to the change in weather. And actually, it's even more important now when we've got such wild climate change happening because the temperatures in different places are changing. It's changing the uh, the the flow of hot and cold
Mm-hmm.
across the world. And so it's pulling colder air down further, or it's drawing hot air up. And so we're seeing much more dramatic change within our seasonal patterns here. And I assume it's happening in other places too. I mean, I know
Yeah,
I hear from
absolutely.
friends throughout Canada and a bunch of different friends in the US saying, wow, our weather has become more extreme.
Yeah.
So being able to track stuff like that and figure out how that impacts your own energy, how you respond to it, how you can use it, or how you can learn to work within it more efficiently. Um, I mean, that's just as important as finding a scrap of grass and lying down and watching clouds or touching a tree.
Yeah, but I will say that most cities, a lot of cities, I grew up on the West Coast, Seattle and San Francisco area, and most cities have, a park, a
Oh
city
yeah.
park where you can go walk around, take your shoes off, ground, your energy into the grass or into the earth, look at trees, hug a tree, be near a tree. So, I mean, I there's that opportunity as well in an
And
urban environment.
botanical gardens as well.
Yeah,
Most cities have some kind of
right,
botanical garden, even if it's completely indoors. And
right.
that's a great place to go too, especially if you want to sort of experiment with touching the energies of plants that might not be native to your area.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I was just gonna kind of ask you, when did you start writing about green witchery?
oh, that started happening, um, I guess in the early 2000s. Uh, I'd been working at a new age shop and handling the book ordering. One of the publishers reached out and said, we are looking for someone who is grounded in all this new age stuff, but also understands publishing. And I'd been working in bookstores since like my very first job was at a bookstore.
Oh,
So at that time,
yay.
yeah,
My first job was
I
in a
had
children's library.
mine was in a children's bookstore.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So I had about a decade of bookshop experience by that
Right.
point.
Yeah.
And the owner of the store came to me and said, "Look, a publisher's looking for you. They're looking for you to help them design a new age imprint." And I went, "Oh, I couldn't do that." And she said, "Well, if you don't send in your resume, I'm going to be really mad at you." So I did. And they contacted me and they said, we didn't think you existed. We didn't think we would ever find someone who had experience in the book trade, as well as someone who had experience in the New Age area. So I ended up being hired by the publisher to help them develop a New Age imprint. And it was so much fun being able to say,
Yeah.
look, these are what the goals of this imprint should be. These are the ideals and the ethics. And so we started publishing books, and I think we had two or three in the pipeline when the editor-in-chief said, "We want you to write one." And I said, "What?" I thought I was just going to be working on the publishing
Right.
side. They said, "No, you've got 2 degrees. Why don't you write something?" So I wrote a couple of books, but then they said, "We want to do a green magic kind of book." And I said, "Well, this is what
Ah,
you should look for." And again, because we were calling for authors at that point, and they came back to me and said, "No, no, you've laid this out so clearly. We want you to write this one." So that's when I started actually sort of writing down all the stuff that I had been doing instinctively just on a day-to-day basis. And apparently it struck a chord because The Way of the Green Witch got the most, I received the most letters about it than I had for my previous 2 books. And then when they re-released it as The Green Witch, what, about 8 years ago now,
yeah.
it it was just the right time.
Yeah. Timing.
This
Hmm.
yeah, it was just timing. There was a huge swath of readers and witchy people who received this reissue with open hearts and open minds, and it's been so exciting. It's been such a ride since then because
Yeah.
the
I've read
re-release
it
of
and it's
that.
an amazing book to our listeners. If you haven't read any of Erin's book, The Green Witch is fabulous and it's a great way to start all her other books. It's just loaded with recipes, spells, folklore, herbalism. And then, Erin, were you an herbalist before you started writing, or how do?
Um, I mucked around with herbs. It was when I started experimenting with the craft, one of my favorite things to do was to sort through a whole bunch of different dried herbs and flowers and plant matter and combine them
Mm,
and sort of work with, like, evaluate the energies of what I had just blended and what could I use this for. And over time, I started to realize that, oh, this is my thing. This is
yeah,
obviously my area of focus. This is my jam. This is my vibe.
yeah,
And this is what I really want to be doing. And I still love doing it. I still love just wandering through an area and going, oh, okay, there's energy from that, and there's energy from that, and then there's energy from this, and I can put it all together and just do something intuitive. And it's wonderful. I just love doing it.
yeah.
So no, before that, um, I wasn't much of a plant person or an herb person. My mother was the gardener in the family, and we did a lot of growing things when I was growing
Okay,
up because we didn't have a lot of money. So, we had an extensive vegetable garden that
great.
we ate from in the summer, and my mom used to preserve stuff. So I
There's a big influence on you.
exactly, exactly. She was the one who showed me that you can do this with this stuff.
Right.
And yeah, so I didn't come at it consciously. It was something I just kind of went, oh, all this background experience just kind of all comes together with this new idea of an alternative spiritual path. And it works for me, and I love sharing these ideas with people and saying, hey, maybe this might work, hey, maybe this might work. And I think one of the most important things about a path like this is, I mentioned creativity and imagination before, but I think that that willingness to try different things and see what sticks. I mean,
Experimentation, sure.
yeah, experimentation and being open to things that other people suggest. And I think one of the great things about this path is when I pick up a new book and I read it, there are some things where I'll go, wow, that just does not. nope, that's not it for me. But then, 3 pages later, there may be something that really hits home. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, wow, what a great idea. And then I have to put the book down and go pick up a notebook and a pen and start scribbling ideas. So I think
Yeah.
it's really important for people to remember that if you pick up a book, I can almost guarantee you are not going to 100% agree with it at any time. And I don't think any author really expects you to. I think any author wants to lay out a bunch of ideas for readers and say, take what works for you.
Right.
Because
What resonates?
because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what resonates with them? Because we're all formulating our own paths, right? We are
Right.
all curating our own experiences, spiritual, magical, otherwise, on our day-to-day basis. It's so subjective. So you can't expect to to find a book or go to a workshop and have someone hand you a neat little package and say, this is all you need. And
Yeah.
it would be nice sometimes, but I mean, there's a lot of homework in a path
Oh,
like
yeah.
this,
Oh,
right?
yeah. You have to do the work, for
Yeah,
sure.
you
And
really have to do the work.
yes, and I would say, I mean, part of my spirituality was being around the natural energies of plants and trees. And particularly in the Pacific Northwest, trees are everywhere. And I started to feel their energy and felt their essence. Can you talk a bit about how can we engage more with the natural energies of plants and trees to promote healing in our mind, body, and spirit? Are there some good ways we could do that, even if we're living in suburban or urban areas?
I think what it really comes down to, the key to all this is taking the time to be aware of what's around you. I think we tend to be very, very busy as
Yes.
human beings,
Oh, yes.
and
And
there's
distracted by
a
our phones.
yes, well, not even just the phones. I mean,
I know, but
uh, if I have if I have the window open, for example, now every car that goes by has their windows down. So I can
yeah.
hear what music they're listening to, or I can hear what conversations they're having because they've plugged their
Yeah.
phones into the
Yeah.
car, and the car is now broadcasting the entire conversation. I can hear the traffic going by. I can hear the people having arguments next door, or I can hear the kids screaming two doors down because they're playing in the backyard after a long winter. Um, so yeah, there's a lot going on.
And
There's a
awareness,
lot of
yeah, having an awareness of all energies. I guess as witches, we can pick up a lot of, we're sensitive and we can pick up a lot of
yeah.
energies and of a lot of things at the same time. But being in tune with the subtle natural energies,
Yeah,
plants and
that's
trees.
that's the thing. Yeah, it's so tricky because you have to be able to hear those things that are distractions and let them go.
Yeah.
And that's really hard because our minds are so busy all the time that we want to take the things we hear and either comment on them in our internal monologue or get cross because they're distracting us from what we want to be doing. But I think being able to really be in the moment and let those distractions just pass through you. And it's easy to say, and it's
Hmm.
really hard to do
Yes, it is.
because our minds really do want to follow all those distractions. Um,
Yeah, it takes a lot of discernment to really look at the energies of plants and trees and flowers and understand their essence. What are they talking to you about? What are they telling you? What do you see?
exactly.
It does take a lot of
It,
discernment to,
it does. It's a very subtle thing. Our daily lives tend to be very loud, and taking that time to just sort of have a quiet moment with whatever thing you're trying to connect to. And I think it's a lot easier to start with deliberately trying to connect to one thing. Like you were talking about the trees. Find a tree or a bush or a single plant, a dandelion pushing through a crack in the sidewalk. Just take a moment to pause and, take a couple of slow breaths, feel yourself within yourself, and then reach out your awareness to whatever you've chosen to connect to and say, I see you. I hear you, and just and giving yourself the opportunity to touch that energy. And I don't necessarily mean touching with your hands, although I am I'm an inveterate
Yeah.
toucher. I go through my garden and I pat things. Like, look at you, you're doing such a great job. What a beautiful
Yeah.
color. Um, but but you can't always do that.
Yeah.
So just I mean, even just imagining reaching out your hand, closing your eyes and imagining reaching out and touching whatever it is. I mean, you can access energy that way too. And
Hmm.
then so you've taken that moment to be aware and listen to or reach out and touch whatever's there. And then you have to give yourself that grace of allowing yourself to receive
Hmm.
that energy, to receive the return of the energy you're reaching out. And this is a problem that a lot of people have mentioned to me. It's like, well, how do I know what I'm feeling is real? It's like it,
Yeah.
that's the wrong question, actually. It
Yeah.
it the question isn't, is it real? The question is, are you feeling something?
Right.
Are you sensing something? Is it affecting you in some way, shape, or form? Even if you are imagining it, you are responding to that thing you are imagining. And that's just as valid as, reaching out and touching it physically.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
because, I mean, like we said before, we are creating this. This is it's highly subjective path that we are creating ourselves. And so you have to trust yourself. You have to give yourself that grace and say, I am allowed to feel however I'm feeling in response to this moment that I am taking.
Right.
And
And
it's,
that takes again, it takes time, it takes
yes,
discernment, it takes energy on our parts. I want to get to a few things before we end here, but right now, I think we are in a huge climate crisis,
yes.
and it's affecting everybody. How do you think we can maintain harmony between humanity and nature? I mean, do you have any like thoughts on that? Like, are there ways that we can be more sensitive and more honoring and less exploitative and more respectful of nature on a day-to-day basis, just everyday people like in our everyday lives?
Yes. Yes. I think taking that time to be aware, the more you think of plants and flowers and trees as having their own energy and having their own and respecting them,
Yes.
the more you start to think of them as having a role to play and having that own energy, their own awareness, their own beings,
Mm-hmm.
the
They
more
are
you start.
beings. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. The more you start realizing that, oh, wow, what we're doing to them, like cutting swaths of the Amazon and dumping
Ugh.
toxic waste into the rivers. This stuff is it impacts us in the long run,
Right.
simply because we do rely on nature. And I mean, even if you just think about like a poisoned environment, mental environment, or emotional environment, a toxic environment like that forces us to have to defend ourselves on an
Mm-hmm.
emotional or spiritual level. So just thinking about what we're doing on a physical level like that to to the living things of nature, realizing that they have the right to protection and the right to their own safety. I think goes a
Right.
long, long way, because when you
Yes.
realize that they have that kind of right,
Yes.
you want to help them. The more you get to know someone or something, the more you feel protective of it.
Yes.
And so I think being so divorced, so removed from the natural world has really, really hurt humanity,
Yes. I
simply
agree.
because they don't know where their food comes from.
Right.
They don't know where their energy
Right.
that turn, you flip a switch, you
Right.
don't think about where the electricity comes from.
From where?
Um,
And it's a shift in attitude, and that's what's at the heart of
yes,
it, I think, is in all, respect for nature and honoring it as sacred, is that we need to understand, we need to shift our attitude. We are part of the world. We're not just the top of the food chain. We are part of a
exactly.
whole system, complex
Yeah.
system of the natural world around us. So anyway, I think it's come to for me personally, I think it has to do with a shift in attitude towards respect
Yes.
versus
Yes.
exploitation.
Yes, absolutely. And on a personal daily level, you can start looking into where the stuff you use on a daily
Yeah,
basis comes from.
right,
Um,
right, the
Something I
source.
was explaining to my kids earlier today was, oh no, it was my mother-in-law. I was explaining to my mother-in-law earlier today that I thrift a lot of stuff, mainly because if someone else has something that I need, I would prefer to buy it secondhand
Right,
than buy it new, because I know that producing that new thing takes resources and then it needs to be shipped,
exactly. Yeah,
which impacts, pollution on another level. And
sure.
it's just so much easier to buy it secondhand. That way I know that I am not contributing to um,
Waste.
fast fashion, or yeah, exactly, waste on several levels.
Right.
Just little things like that.
Okay.
Does your supermarket use compostable or recyclable trays when they package things?
Mm-hmm.
Do
Yeah.
can you and I know there comes sometimes you have to choose. You can't do all the things you want to do to make the world a better place. Sometimes you have to choose. Like, if I mean, food is so expensive now.
Yeah.
And if what you have to do is choose between feeding your family and buying fewer groceries from a place that has a better ethical approach to how they to their suppliers, I mean, it comes down to, okay, well, that's not something I can do right now, because
Right.
I do need to buy this amount of groceries in a week,
Sure.
and I cannot buy the smaller amount because my
Sure.
kids need to eat. So
Erin,
I
before we end here, I just wanted, sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to ask you if you have any new upcoming plans for the future. And then I was going to ask you if you have a website for people to learn more about you and your books.
Absolutely, something I'm really excited about. The GreenWitch has been such an important book in my life. My publisher is releasing a new fully illustrated larger
Mm,
edition in
beautiful.
November of 2024.
Oh,
Uh,
yay.
yeah,
Exciting.
I'm really excited to see it. Sarah Richards, who illustrated the Green Witch's Garden and did the beautiful artwork for my Green Witch's Oracle deck, is doing all the new illustrations for it, and I cannot
Oh,
wait to see what she does.
oh, that's beautiful. And where is a website where people can learn more about you and your books?
I have the terribly creative website address of erinmurphyhiscock.com. Um,
Okay.
it's slightly out of date. I need to sit down with my webmaster and put some new stuff on there. And I do have a Facebook page and an Instagram account. Both of those are Arin Murphy-Hiscock. I don't tend to be very active on social media. I'm a lot more of an introvert. Um, Plants are more my speed.
Yeah, and you're busy writing books. So,
I am. I can't talk about anything else right now
okay.
because stuff is still being worked out, but
Ooh,
there's a
great.
couple of wonderful projects I'm really excited about coming up, and I can't
That's
wait to be able to
awesome.
share them.
So things are brewing.
Things are brewing.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And I just really enjoyed speaking with you and learning more about your passion for green witchery and nature based spirituality. And thank you for inspiring us to harmonize with nature.
Thank you so much, Bridget. I love talking about this stuff, and it's been a
Yeah.
wonderful opportunity to be here with you.
Yeah. And thanks to all our listeners for tuning in. Blessed be. See you next time. Bye.